Hey everybody, and welcome to the Master Level Marriage Podcast, where we discuss all things marriage and where you can discover the tools that you need to have a strong and healthy relationship. Our host, author, and marriage coach, Dr. Ronnie Gaines, will unpack many facets of a marital relationship as he dives into the dynamics of a marriage. In each episode, you will learn what it takes to succeed in your relationship and win in your marriage. Whether you are in the planning stages or have been married for several years, our desire is to help you grow and enrich your life as a couple and become a success story. Subscribe or follow us and be notified of each episode. Please leave us a review and help us help other couples. For more information, visit www.masterlevelmarriage.com. Thanks for checking us out. Now here's your host, Dr. Ronnie Gaines.
Welcome to the Master Level Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Ronnie Gaines, and I'm so glad that you're here with me on this show today. Wow, this is our 15th episode. Man, it just seems like we just started this podcast, but we are at 15, and in just 10 episodes, we're going to have a special guest. And on that episode, I will be interviewing a really good friend of mine by the name of Brent Sharp, marriage and family counselor, therapist. He was my supervisor at one point, and I'm going to be bringing a special episode on that 25th episode. Be ready for that. Subscribe, download, and be ready where you are notified, where you will know when that podcast, that show pops up. And let's get into this 25th episode with excitement. I'm excited about 25 episodes coming up. Man, the downloads are still coming in. We're going to hit 1,000 here really shortly. So I want to say this. I am so grateful that you have been downloading these podcasts. You are amazing. The comments, the suggestions, those things that you are sending to me, man, I am so grateful for you. And I know that we're going to continue to bring good content and change and transform marriages. That's what it's all about. I want to see your marriage, your relationship get better. I've had people send me messages saying, hey, listen, I'm caught up on all the episodes and so thankful. Can't wait till the next one comes out. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, Master Level Marriage YouTube channel. Subscribe to that. It'll notify you. And so keep up with what all is going on with this podcast and each show. And again, I am so grateful for you. And if you go down below, you can see where there's a place to click on comments. Here, it will take you to a little short form, and you can leave some information there and leave a comment. This helps us with future shows. It'll help me to know that you're interacting with me. This is what makes this podcast and these shows so special, is to know that you're there. You're interacting with me. This is how we form a relationship. And I get so excited when I see those comments, because I know that we're forming this relationship, and you and I will find that we will develop a healthy marriage, and we're going to do it together. So thank you so much for the downloads. Thank you for the subscribers on YouTube, and thank you for the comments. You can also go below and click on our website, and you'll see a place where you can find the book that I published in February of 2022 called BFF, Becoming Your Spouse's Best Friend Again. This book is primarily to give you strategies and things to help you rebuild that relationship that you once had with your spouse. It is good for those that are newlyweds or those that are planning on getting married. It's just concepts. It's just their stories. It's very conversational in the writing. Get that book. You can order it from our website. Actually, you can get a little bit cheaper through my website than you can on Amazon. So you order it from me. I'll give you free shipping, and I'll get it out to you. So thank you for those orders as well. Let's jump into some content today. I've got some really good content for you, basically off of a comment that I got from one of the listeners. And this listener stated that they wanted to hear a little bit more about emotional intelligence. Now, in a few some past shows, I don't remember exactly which episode it was, we talked about emotional intelligence just a little. I covered just a small fragment of emotional intelligence, but I want to go into this topic a little bit deeper. And to do that, I really want to take about 2 shows, maybe 3. We'll see what happens. But on this 15th episode, I really want to highlight emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, if you will, we'll call it EI, is really a vital part or a vital component of emotional and social development. It really does encompass the capacity, watch this, the capacity to recognize, understand, and to manage your own emotions. And not just managing your own emotions, but it also gives you the ability to perceive and to influence someone else's emotions or influence the emotions of others. We're going to get into influencing others with this idea of emotional intelligence in the next show. But today, I really want to talk about these 3 components. I want to talk about that you recognize, that you understand, and that you are able to manage emotions. You know, the funny thing about men say that, I don't like to express my emotions. We're not, we've been known as an unemotional individuals, that we don't express our emotions. But I want to disagree with that just a little bit. We do express our emotions. We just don't express those emotions or even talk about those emotions that have anything to do with how we perceive might be feminine. The love, the connection, this care and relationship. We start getting too close to that, and we kind of back away. We're like, well, I can't share that. I can't share my emotions. But we actually do display emotions. They come out differently, as in anger, sometimes fear. Love emotions come out of me. I love my wife. I show love to my wife. I love my kids. I show love to my kids. I show love to my grandkids. So the emotions are there. We may not want to talk about them, but we do display those emotions. So we show different emotions, anger. Sometimes we might show some fear, some anxiety, and those sorts of things. But I want to talk to the men here for just a moment, because sometimes we think of emotions, we think of the lovey-dovey type stuff, but emotions go so much further and so much beyond just those little lovey-dovey emotions that we try to escape from and isolate those different emotions. But they actually do. We do express those in certain ways. We're just different. And what we have to do when it comes to emotional intelligence is we have to recognize our emotions and see, when emotions are expressed, sometimes they're expressed in a positive way, they're expressed in a negative way. Anger seems to be negative, but it can also be expressed in a positive way. Anger in a negative way would be something to the fact of that I produce and show so much anger maybe towards a situation or a person that it would cause hurt. It could cause, some kind of physical pain. If my anger got to the point where I caused some kind of physical pain to someone, that would be a negative emotion. But there's also a positive to an anger, as if someone comes against my wife or tries to hurt my wife or tries to hurt my family. The anger that rises up inside of me is going to come out as protection. It's going to be a positive emotional response. So we have to recognize these different emotional aspects and the emotional characteristics. So when we begin to understand, or let's just say we recognize these emotions, once we recognize them, then we can understand them, and then we manage them. And especially if they're negative emotions, we want to learn ways to manage those emotions. We recognize them, And we recognize sometimes the triggers, which might lead into the understanding of the emotions. Once we recognize them, then we can understand them. We have triggers that help us recognize emotions. Let's just say anger. There might be triggers in your life that these certain things are going to make you angry. And you know those triggers prior to the feelings of anger that rise up inside of you. I've been driving to Tulsa for about several years, but 13 years consistently, going to the university where I teach. And I know that when I get in my vehicle and I head to Tulsa, there's some things that I'm going to encounter. One of those is going to be these, what I call crazy drivers. They may not be crazy, but I call them crazy. I know that they're going to be cutting me off on the road. I know that they're on their phones. I know they're texting. I know they're not paying attention. They're driving in front of me, or they're slowing down. They're in the wrong lane, and I'm going crazy, And my anger, I feel sometimes, when anger rises up inside, you kind of get that hot feeling that's on the back of your neck, and you just feel it. And this is what happens. And I know that when I get in my vehicle and I head to Tulsa, I know that I'm going to experience those emotions. Another thing is, for the past several years, it seems like several roads in Tulsa, in the city of Tulsa, they're working on. There's orange cones everywhere. And when you come up against these cones, you try to take a side street to get out of it. You're in a hurry. I'm in a hurry to get to where I'm going. And as soon as you take that next road, just turn around the corner and there are more cones. They're working on more roads. And I know that when I leave here, when I leave my house, I'm about 45 to 50 minutes away. I know that when I get in my car, I'm going to face these challenges and they're going to make me angry. Another thing is railroads, tracks with trains. It seems like the train knows I'm getting ready to get there. And so here it comes and I'm stuck. Stoplights, they drive me crazy. But I know that when I leave my house, I'm going to encounter those different things. And just four that I just showed you, those are triggers that trigger my emotions of anger. And I'm not the type of person that I get all angry and I hit things and throw things and say things and give hand gestures to things. I don't do that, but it's still, I get angry. And when the anger rises up in me, I get stressed. I get, and I get frustrated and irritated. And I know that these things, so what I have to do is I have to start recognizing what my anger or what my emotions are going to be in this situation. There's many other things. I'm just using this for an example that I know I've got to recognize those emotions. And to have emotional intelligence, I recognize that these things are a possibility. And really, it's all about pre-planning. It's about planning ahead of time, knowing that I'm going to encounter these. There's sometimes I realize you can't plan emotions. But for most things, for a lot of things, you can plan these times of emotions. I know. I just know when I leave to go to Tulsa, I'm going to encounter at least four of these things. And so I kind of pre-plan. I have to have a plan, a set in my mind. I've got to be a mindset. If I'm going to have emotional intelligence, I've got to have a mindset. I've got to think about what I'm getting ready to be challenged with. And it's a pre-plan. I want to plan my reaction. I know my triggers. I know what these triggers are going to be in this certain situation. I know what the triggers are. But I have to pre-plan. I have to plan ahead, and I have to recognize what I'm going to be coming up against. This helps me. And the second thing is to understand why these things make me so irritated, why these things make me so angry. So I begin to understand my emotion. It's who I am. It's going to happen. And I begin to understand. And when I understand, then I'm able to really place a new meaning on the triggers that I recognize, the emotions that I recognize, if I understand why these things bother me, then I have a tendency, or I have a plan to give some different meaning to what I'm getting ready to experience. It's not always the triggers or the event or the thing that's making me angry that determines how I act. It is the meaning that I give to it. Why does it really matter that a person cuts me off in the road? Why does it really matter that they're on their phones and they're texting? It's frustrating, but why does it really even matter? I know that it's coming. I know that I'm going to experience it. Why does it even matter? Why does it matter that I know that I'm going to be coming up against a railroad track and the train comes through and stops me? Why does it really matter? You say, well, it makes me late. It runs me late, and it does many times. But if I pre-plan this, I know that when I leave, then I'm going to have the trigger. I know these things are going to happen. So I have to set my mind. Also, maybe I just need to leave earlier to be more prepared. So I know I'm getting into the management part, but we'll talk about that in just a moment. But we're talking about to recognize these triggers, recognize these things that cause my emotions to change, to rise. I have this statement in my book that says, the speed of a hard conversation determines the intensity of the emotions. If I know that there's going to be some things that my wife and I are going to be in conflict with, or there's something that she does that frustrates me, or that I disagree with, it's a conflict, the sooner I have that conversation with her, the lower my emotions are. I bring those emotions into check. If I wait too long and I let this conflict go for so long, then my emotions rise higher. And emotional intelligence has everything to do with managing those emotions. And sometimes in our relationship, in our marriage, one way that we manage is we recognize that this is going to happen. Because when we get frustrated, when we don't agree or we have a conflict, we know that we're going to recognize that we give understanding to that in some way, that it wasn't what I intended. And I understand, I need to understand her for one thing, but I do understand that I need this. And so once I understand that, then I have a chance to manage it. And if I'm in a conflict with my wife, one of the ways that I can manage it, if I have something against her or I have a complaint, one of the ways I manage and make my emotional intelligence more active is to have those quick conversations where I don't allow my emotions to get to the point where I don't think clearly. Sometimes management is when we see things early and we plan. So we need to recognize our emotions, understand them, and then manage them. Management is huge. Management is where we can bridle or suppress things that might get out of hand. I've been visiting with a lady that has been having problems. Her and her husband are in conflict. There's some things that happened over the years that are now coming to the surface, and it's probably going to end in a failure in their relationship. And because of that, because of what he's done, it's caused so many emotions. And right now, this couple's working through recognizing the emotions that are coming and understanding those emotions, but trying to manage those emotions. And when you're in a conflict, when you're in a conflictual situation in this sense, and when there's been a breach of the marriage, it's difficult to manage your own emotions. And so what's happening is this person is causing so many issues with her, and phone calls, texts, and all these major things that are just overboard and becoming angry and resentful, belligerent, and so the relationship is really becoming a little bit toxic. And so one of the things that she stated was that she's not going to listen to that if he calls or texts or whatever. She's just not going to embrace that kind of negativity when he calls. And so she said, if this happens again, I'm just going to hang up, because all the screaming, yelling, and pointing and accusing and all that's just not going to work. So one day he calls and starts the whole process again, and she just hangs up. And when she hangs up, he takes his phone and smashes it, just completely destroys it. Here was a great opportunity to manage that emotion, and he didn't manage it well. Now he had to purchase a brand new phone, cost $800 or $900, and this is where emotional intelligence is so vital. It's a vital component, especially to you. But now we have to understand that when it comes to someone else's development, someone else's emotions, there's only a certain thing that you can do personally yourself. You can recognize their emotions and you can understand their emotions. And sometimes the way we understand is to ask. But the only difference is in our own setting, in our own life, we can recognize, we can understand, and we can manage. But we cannot manage the emotions of someone else. We can't change someone else. We're not able to control someone else. So that person has to manage their own emotions. But it matters how you manage yourself when someone else displays their emotion. We can manage ourselves. We can manage us. We can recognize their emotions and we can understand their emotions. But the only management that we have is manage how we respond or how we interact or react to someone else's emotions. Emotional intelligence goes so much further than just this. There's actually 4 domains of emotional intelligence. The first domain is self-awareness. The second portion of the emotional intelligence is self-management. The third one is social awareness, or the awareness of someone else. And then the fourth domain is relationship management. So you have self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. And these 4 domains make up emotional intelligence, and it covers so many things. You see, emotional intelligence is not just about you as an individual and your emotions, or even this interpersonal relationship you have with someone else, understanding them and recognizing their emotion and helping them in some way to manage their emotion. But it has everything to do with effective leadership. This emotional intelligence goes way beyond just a relationship at home with your spouse, but it goes all the way into the workplace in effective leadership. You know, I've worked for people before who could not manage their emotions. And when we did something maybe wrong in what we were, whatever we were supposed to do, we didn't do it quite the way they wanted to. Then they go off and just scream and yell and cannot manage their own emotions. But it goes into leadership. I heard of a coach one time who coached a girls' softball team. And this coach, if those girls did not play the way that he thought they should have, maybe they won, I don't know, maybe they lost, but they just didn't play the way that he thought they did. They would go to the locker room and in that locker room, he would scream and he would yell at those girls and pick up chairs and pick up furniture, throw it across the room and smash it against the wall because he could not manage his emotions. This is not good leadership. Good leadership doesn't just motivate. Maybe he thought he was motivating them in some way where if I motivate them, they'll do things right. They'll do things the right way and maybe we'll win. Leadership's not always about just motivating. I can motivate my students at the university. I can motivate them by telling them, if you don't get this assignment in, you're going to get a 0. And if you don't get some of these assignments in, you're going to flunk the course. You're going to lose scholarships. That's motivation. It's motivation to get assignments done. And I understand that in a university setting. But I take this a little bit further, that emotional intelligence is a lot about inspiration. And we'll get into this next week about how to influence others in this idea of emotional intelligence. That, remember, emotional intelligence is the vital component of emotional intelligence is managing your emotions, but it's also influencing others in their emotions. And we'll talk about how to influence others, how to be a part of the recognizing, understanding, and managing when it's someone else and you can't manage their emotions, and to influence them and help them manage their own emotions. Be the leadership in your home. It's all about emotional intelligence. It's about bridling emotions that can cause hurt, cause damage, cause failure in your relationship if you don't somehow manage those emotions. Emotional intelligence is about recognizing your emotions, understanding, giving meaning to those emotions, giving some meaning to those, and giving the right meaning will suppress those emotions that cause so many problems in your life. And then find a way to manage those. What does it look like for you to manage the emotions? What is it about this management process of helping you resolve these different emotions in your life, making them a positive rather than a negative? We can't help what happens around us. Many times we try to keep things from happening, and we don't have control over some. We don't have control over some of the triggers that triggers us, but we do have control over how we react to the triggers. Some triggers, like I said earlier, some of the triggers we're not even going to know that those things are getting ready to happen, but they happen. And sometimes we're overwhelmed, but I think it's a plan. I think it's something that, again, we said earlier, this is a plan that we put into place before we're triggered. And I believe it's a mindset. I believe that it's preparing our minds. Today, I want you to really just grab a hold of the fact that this emotional intelligence is really about recognizing, understanding, and managing. And then next week, I really want to tackle and really go into a little bit more in depth on the 4 primary domains, which is the self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and the relationship management. We'll break those down. We'll talk about those 4 different things. But today, just start here. Start thinking about those things that causes your emotions to rise. What is it that triggers things in your life, these emotions in your life that become negative, and start creating a plan of how to manage those. Maybe you need to get out a piece of paper and or your notes on your phone and start listing those things that maybe we need to list the emotions first. What is it that you really deal with, that you struggle with? Is it anger? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? What are those things that you're dealing with? Make a list. And then out beside each one of those, write down triggers that you can think of that trigger these specific emotions. Now we're recognizing the emotions. Now, when you write down what triggers those emotions, start breaking down and try to understand what is the factors that cause me to go to another level emotionally with these triggers. Maybe it's a family background. Maybe it's something that happened in your life. Maybe there's an insecurity in your life that's causing these particular emotions. Is it something that you've experienced in the past? Is it something that has happened recently? Start understanding why these triggers cause these particular emotions. Then we begin to when we start understanding, then we start placing new meaning. We can start changing the meaning. So we recognize it, we write down the triggers, and then we start understanding why the triggers are doing what they're doing. And then once we understand, then we can start writing a plan, then write out next to these the plan to manage those. What am I going to do? What am I going to do when someone says something to me that triggers an emotion and I get angry or I get fearful or I get anxious? What am I going to do? Let's pre-plan it. What am I going to do? Am I going to self-talk? Am I going to talk myself off the ledge? If I get fearful, am I going to self-talk? That could simply mean that I start talking to myself and telling myself everything's going to be okay. There are certain things that I can't have no control over, but I have control over me. I have control over how I react to it. I have control over what meaning I give it. So I take control. Emotional intelligence is all about taking control of your life and managing these aspects that sometimes you have no control over. Take control of it. You say, well, what's that have to do with marriage? It has everything to do with marriage. It's just that emotional intelligence goes well beyond marriage. It goes to how you interact with everyone. And it also has to do with how others interact with you and their emotions. This is emotional intelligence, not just about your emotions, it's about the emotions of others. And we're going to get into that a little bit more next week. But we have to learn how to manage. We have to write these things down. Make a list. Write them down. Write the triggers. Understand why these things why you're having these triggers and why they're affecting you. And then for each one, begin to write down a method of how you're going to manage it. How are you going to manage your life? You're the only one that can manage your life. No one can control you. No one can manage you. You must manage your own life. And here's the thing too. We can't blame everyone else. You can't blame others. That's not a strategy to help you become emotionally intelligent. Emotionally intelligent is you take ownership of your emotions and you learn to manage them. You have to recognize them and understand them before you can manage them. But once you recognize and understand, then you can start a process of managing your emotions. And in next week, we're going to break down each domain of emotional intelligence. And I believe that through this process, it's going to help you. And I want to thank you for being on this show today and lasting all the way through the entire thing and really grasping the idea of emotional intelligence. It's important that you manage your emotions in your relationship and in your life. And thank you for the downloads. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel. I'm so grateful for you, and I can't wait until next week to continue this topic on emotional intelligence. And again, In just a few weeks, we will be celebrating our 25th episode, our 25th show. And I can't wait to have my guest on with me. Be ready for that. Download, subscribe, and be ready for the notifications so you won't miss an episode. And I always love to leave you with this. Be your best self, live out your full potential, and experience your best marriage. I'll see you on the next show.